Welcome to The Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Hello, welcome to The Bold Book of the Day. My name is Dr. Denise Nicholson, and this podcast is for anyone looking for inspiration. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming a truly captivating voice in women's fiction, Joni Marie Iraci. She is the author of the gripping new novel, Vatican Daughter. It's a modern day story inspired by real life events and events that rocked the Vatican and shocked the world. How fitting. Her book blends mystery, romance, and historical intrigue, following one woman's relentless quest to expose corruption and reclaim her stolen child, all while navigating the depths of power, betrayal, and resilience. Set against the vivid backdrop of Italy and steeped in cultural and historical detail, this novel will stay with you long after you've read the last page. Please welcome Joni to the show.
Thank you for that wonderful synopsis. That's awesome. Thank you.
It's surprising to hear who you are. So, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. What inspired you to write Vatican Daughter? And
Lots of things.
how did you learn about the real life people kidnappings that helped shape your story?
Oh, it's not that long of a story. It's 12 years of Catholic school, that started it, witnessing hypocrisy as a child and not being able to say anything, of course. And then as an adult, being in the presence of very shady clergy, some went to jail actually. And I went to I go to Italy a lot, so I was standing at St. Peter's Square, and I was this about 10 years ago, and I was looking, thinking, oh, wonder what's going on back there these days. And I had the title first. I always get the title first for some reason, so I had the title. And then it started, I had some ideas. I jotted down some notes and I put it aside for quite a number of years. Then I went back to school, got my master's in Columbia, and I wrote other things. And then in 2019, I went back to Italy and I walked all through Rome and Venice. Venice I know pretty well, but Rome I didn't know as well. Walked about 88 miles in 2.5 weeks. And then I came home, and during the pandemic, I sat for 8 hours a day and wrote. So in doing the writing, I usually write a little bit and then I research. So research always takes you down rabbit holes. One of the rabbit holes was the true life kidnappings of Jewish children by the then Pope in 1859, the then Pope Pius IX. And that was a true story. And I found a book that was written by David Kurtzer, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, who's a professor at Brown. And I contacted him, and he told me more of the story. And so that I managed to weave into the story, and it fueled it further. So, and it kind of validated the story because it did really happen at one point.
Wow. What was your reaction? Because we just lost the Pope. And so what was your reaction when you heard that the Pope had passed?
I know. It was funny because one host, as like yourself, was scared to interview me. I mean, it really has nothing to do with the Pope, the current Pope.
Of course not, right? But
I mean, it's fiction. But I had the opportunity to meet with Dan Brown, who got in a lot of trouble too, which I never really understood because it's fiction and people tend to want to believe it. They believe it, but I mean, that's a little much to be afraid to interview somebody. So yeah, I just I kind of shrugged it off. And most radio hosts and podcast hosts are excited to talk about it, because I
Absolutely.
listened to an interviewer discuss The Conclave, that movie that just came out a little
Mm-hmm.
while ago. And I mean, my book is similar in that it delves into the lust for power with
Mm-hmm.
papacy, and within the Vatican. And she said that Vatican stories are like catnip for Hollywood. So it's kind of my catnip. So, I think people are intrigued by the mystery, and, the Pope is the supreme leader, not of just of the church, but of the sovereign nation. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't go by, our laws. They have their own canon law, and he's the supreme ruler of not just the church, but also the country, and can't be convicted of a crime, which I found astounding. He's the judge, juror, and executioner. So it takes a lot to have to get rid of a pope,
Mm.
be, So it is fiction, though. Let me remind you.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the book navigates themes of love, betrayal, and power, and it seemed fitting to talk about it at this time
Of course.
because we just lost the Pope. So how did you balance the personal romance between Sophia, who is the protagonist, and Joseph with the larger political and religious tensions in the story?
Well, I try to give the readers rather, a reprieve from all the tension by, weaving in the ambiance of Italy, the food
Hmm.
and the scenery. I know it pretty well. So,
Hmm.
the just to give them some breathing space.
Boy, my husband and I were in Rome about 2 years ago, and the food was so delicious. I thought I was going to come back home 10 pounds heavier,
But
but surprisingly, I didn't. I think it was.
I'll tell you why,
Tell
because
me why. Because
it's all natural. It's not loaded with the all the preservatives that we have.
ah
Everything is fresh. This fish comes out of the sea and goes on your plate. And
ah
it's very fresh. I mean, it's true. I never gain weight when I
yeah.
go,
I
which is,
was
and I
so nervous because I was eating everything, and bread was a staple part of every meal.
yes. Well,
Girl.
the other thing is, I actually took an anthropology class and I did a paper on food, and I used Italy as my backdrop because um, they have the slow food movement, so
Hmm.
they were in an uproar when McDonald's opened in Rome,
Hmm.
because they are all about food as a social, activity where if you make a reservation at a restaurant in Rome or anywhere in Italy, that's it. You sit there for as many hours as you want, because
Yeah.
it's more of an event than where you don't see anybody walking around with a cup of coffee ever. They
Hmm.
stand at a cafe and they have their cappuccino in the morning, and then they
Yes.
go up to work. They're not in that frenzy. There's no food in the car.
Hurry, hurry. Yeah.
Hurry. So, yeah, they were very upset when McDonald's.
Burst on the
They
scene.
had a big. If you look it up, you could see they had a big, huge protest. But
As
progress
they should,
as they
because,
should. But
that's eaten into the culture and the love that they pour into food. You can't put it in a
it's
fast
not.
food.
It's not that
Yeah.
they don't have supermarkets. They don't
Hmm.
have supermarkets, massive supermarkets like we have.
Hmm.
So they get their food every day and they cook it, and then they go out every day, which I kind of like that.
Yeah, I only spent a few days, I think, maybe 4 days altogether there, but it was a remarkable 4 days because I was eating like crazy and came back home lighter. So we plan to go back again in the future because we did not
You
go to
must.
Venice.
You
Yes.
must, and I will give you places to go that you won't believe you can find.
Thank you very much. I hope I get to visit some of the places that Sophia Trovato
Yes,
explored.
uh,
So,
definitely
guys,
Cabaret is a beautiful.
so Sophia Trovato is a powerful protagonist. What aspects of her character were most important for you to develop as you wrote this fiction?
Well, her drive to find her child, and of
Mm-hmm.
course, she's coming head to head with the most powerful entity on earth.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't think that she could possibly um, have any, positive result because of the magnitude of their power. But when, her landlady tells her the story of the real papal kidnapping, so then, because Sophia was convinced no one would believe her.
Right.
She said, "Of course they'll believe you," because she had been sequestered and didn't know the goings on and the scandals that had taken place.
So, what were they doing with these children that they were taken?
In the real life story.
I'd love to dig deep
Yes.
into the real
Okay.
life story also,
Um,
because I've never heard of this before.
no, and interestingly, Dr. David Kurtzer, who wrote the book, he told me, I said, "Why is this not well known?" And he said, "Well, the Christians, of course, Catholics were embarrassed in the future by this."
Mm.
And interestingly, Pius IX is the one who established, the papal, what do you call it? Where they're infallible. He's the
Hmm.
one who established that. That wasn't really handed down that's a man-made thing. So, it
Right.
exonerated him. But this one particular child was taken. The Jewish people were kept in the ghetto. It was before Italy was united. So it was the Papal States in the 1800s. And this one particular family, well, the Jewish, they were wealthy merchants, but they were sequestered in the ghetto. Still
Hmm.
the Jewish ghetto in Rome and Bologna and all around Italy. And so they hired illiterate Christian servant girls to tend to the Sabbath, because they could not, Jewish girls could not work, on the Sabbath. So this one particular child was ill, and the parents were sitting vigil around the bedside. And the servant girl assumed that the child was dying. And when the parents left the room, she baptized the child. And then she confessed to the parish priest, who reported it to the Vatican, because it was illegal for a Jewish family to raise a Christian child. So the Vatican swooped in and took the child, Eduardo Mortara, and raised him in the Vatican. At the age of 6, they took him, and the family could not get the child back. So obviously he became a priest and all of that you would expect he was raised by the Pope.
Wow. So
I know.
that is a true story.
That is a true story. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Fascinating, right? Can you imagine?
Fascinating
I
that
was,
someone could uh, come
I
into your home
mhm,
and changed everything.
yes. I found that by researching. It's amazing how you go down these different paths,
I mean, research will get us every time as an
I've become
author.
the queen of Google, but
Queen of research.
exactly. And I found, I was looking for Italian Jewish last names.
Hmm.
I came upon that story just inadvertently. So,
Wow.
yeah.
It truly is intriguing, as well as some of the characters that you've written about. For example, Cardinal Rosalie.
Roselli, yeah. Roselli,
Roselli was or is a chilling antagonist.
yes.
What influenced that creation of that character?
Oh, I just, I'm not going to mention any names, but I worked with a clergyman who was pretty much a chameleon. He was holier than thou and preachy and judgy, and we had many fights. I taught religion for 8 years, and I taught to kids, so I had a lot of fights with him. But the whole time he was pontificating at me, he had some dirty deeds he was doing. So that all came out, and so he's loosely based on that experience.
Okay, so you were to ensure that the character felt both human and terrifying, you used that character, that person. Now, was that person, I know, I don't want to like shame anyone, but did he have, real humanistic characteristics that people may fall in love with in one setting, and then in another, like, oh my God, this guy's chilling?
The real person?
Yes, the real person.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. He was so charismatic, and everybody loved him, and he was oh my gosh. Even when he got caught with his hand in the proverbial cookie jar, they still came to his defense, because he would put on the mass itself would be a show. It would be like just over the top, just
wow.
Yeah. And to the point where I don't know, I shouldn't say, but the nuns called him his lordship. But
wow,
interesting. Yeah.
I've learned over the years never to put anyone on a pedestal, because the same pedestal that you put them on will be that pedestal that they fall off of. And then you would look like, oh my God, you
fell for it.
Yeah, you fell for it. And I notice nowadays, not just nowadays, I've seen it over the years, where people preach one thing and act as though they are holier than thou. And then when later on, things come up about them that they are nowhere near what they are trying to portray.
Exactly.
So yeah, I learned not to put anyone on a pedestal. You mentioned in this book, you mentioned the novel Bridges, commercial and literary fiction. How did you approach crafting a story about that both was like thought-provoking and page-turning at the same time?
I don't know. It just the muse hit. I mean, a character ended up in Magalini's Chili. Go figure that one. Never been there, but it just kind of fit. I knew that a lot of Italians went to we're in South America, and he ended up there. And of course, I'd never been there, so I had to do a lot of research about what it looked like. And
now, you said you went to Italy in 2019, and then the pandemic broke, and you wrote that book in 2020. You sat for 8 hours, a few days a week, or every day? Every day, and brought this rich story to life. Now, the setting is in Italy, and so your mind must have been inundated with the culture, the architecture, the ambiance, all of the things that you just saw and inhaled. How did you pour that out on the page so that it was just alive for us, or come alive for us?
Well, let me clarify. I went to Italy every year.
Oh,
I have friends in Venice, and I didn't know Rome as well, so I Venice. So I can't write while I'm there about So when I got home is when I start. It comes back, because she's it's kind of like home to me.
Yes.
So of
course, you want to enjoy.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was there in October of 2019, and I was very sick. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? So I had COVID before they knew what it was.
Oh wow! What month was that?
It was October, so it didn't really break until January.
January, right?
So I was so sick, and it was Yeah. I was a cough for 6 weeks, and oh, it's dreadful. And then there
Wow.
you go. So
And
yeah,
months later,
later.
you were lucky to survive that
Yeah.
because so many people lost their lives.
No, I think, yeah, well, I have a theory about that. Like,
That we have girl, I'm with you on that theory. Okay. What challenges did you face fictionalizing the historical elements, particularly the sensitive topics like the persecution of Jews and the inner workings of the Vatican?
well, I didn't really struggle too much with that because I felt it needed to be told. You know,
Hmm.
just wrote it.
But
You
how
know?
did you fictionalize it? Being
Oh,
that, yeah.
yeah, you just weave it into the story. I mean, for example, the history, when Sophia comes back to Rome, she's complaining that no one will believe her story. She tells her landlady, motherly landlady, the
Yeah.
story. She said nobody will believe it, and she pulls the book of David Kurtzer's book off of the shelf.
Mm.
She says here, this is the story my grandmother told, heard from her rabbi relative or whatever. They heard the story, and here's the story in print, read this. And of course,
Hmm.
that fuels her a little bit. So there's ways to weave truth into fiction without making it too, blatant. Like you're not, I don't write nonfiction. In fact, I tried to take a nonfiction class when I was an undergrad, and he wouldn't let me take the class because he said, he'll send me out like a journalist and I'll come back with all other stuff. So, yeah, but
True researcher.
true. Yes, I research but then I embellish.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you write about, sometimes you have like characters, and you write about them, and some are too narcissistic to recognize themselves. It's so good.
Tell me about your story.
My
What?
story,
Yeah, tell me a little bit
my
about Joni Marie, the young girl.
Oh, well, I used to write bad poetry as a teenager. I think probably every writer starts out with that. I don't know.
Mhm.
And I look at it now and it's like, oh gosh, thank God I'm not a poet. I'd never make this, never. But I always wrote in some fashion. So people would ask me, oh, can you write a letter for me? Can you fix this, or can you write my story or whatever? And I wouldn't put anything out into the universe unless I had the credentials to do so.
Mhm,
I need
mhm.
to be, I need to have backup, so to speak.
Yes.
So Sarah Lawrence, which you probably know since you live nearby, I think.
Mhm,
I lived in New Rochelle, so
mhm.
I
I'm familiar with the Sarah Lawrence
yes.
school.
So
Mhm,
I was an adult, and they would send me these continuing education, come to our open house. So I said, I used to throw it out, every April I got it. So my kids were still kind of bungee corded to the nest, but I was free. So I went. It was surreal. There had to
mhm,
be like 100 people in this house, in this big room.
mhm,
The director of the program came down the steps, and I had my back to the door. It was
mhm.
so crowded, and she said, you come upstairs and talk to me. You need to do this," which out of nowhere. So I went upstairs and we chatted, and she gave me the application and I filled it out, and there you go. I went to Sarah Lawrence as a grown up. So they told me, "Oh no, there'll be a lot of adults." Well, no, there weren't. So there were a few, but mostly me and kids. But it was great. I had a wonderful time. And then I went to Columbia. I got
Uh-huh.
I got jury duty, and I got picked for jury duty for 2 months, and then at Columbia on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was weird, but I wrote my first book. I wrote at a court scene, and I got a lot of help from the judge, and it was great. So, and then I went to Columbia, and it was the same. There was one student who was older than me, and I did it again. And the kids were very helpful because technology is always the biggest hurdle. I've been in school for 35 years, so they helped me with that, and I helped them with life, and I fed them. So that works. And everybody was great. I loved it. I wish I could go back for something else.
What was the most challenging for you as a developing author?
Just having the time to write,
Boy, we struggle with that. Yes.
I wrote a story about it called Distress. It's on my website. But yeah, it's that, every women always have. It's interesting. There was a essay I read as an undergrad about women writers and how a male writer, if their mother's sick, I forget the author, but if their mother's sick, whereas a woman will go, they'll continue to write. That's their job, but you'll put it aside for everything else.
That's true. We always put our dreams aside
Right.
for, our families, our loved ones.
It took me so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has writing this book changed your views on power, religion, and justice?
Well, I always had my views, that were, I could see the hypocrisy, and I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with faith or any of that, because while at Sarah Lawrence, I took this fabulous class called The Fall of the Roman Empire. It was taught by art historian David Castriata. And the man is a genius, and he taught himself Greek. He's amazing. Anyway, it was like going to a Broadway show every evening. And he delved into the origins of Christianity and all of the, how they weaved overtook the pagan, aspects and
beliefs,
lore in people. So, the vestments and the cruciform way, the churches and the processions, that's all taken from the pagan. And it was fascinating. So that fueled my interest. And I love that class.
What do you want the readers to take away? If there's just one thing that they could get from this book, what do you want them to take away?
Well, be a survivor, not a victim. But no matter what you're going through, be a survivor. That's the premise. That's what the message should be. And my first book is the same. A girl undergoes some trauma, and she, overcomes it and sheds the veil of victimhood. And that's my message. And I think a lot of people enjoy being victims because they get attention. But I think, it empowers you. I think. I think that I've gotten comments from readers of the first book that it helped them. It's not where you start out; it's where you end up. That matters in life.
So, what's next for you? Are you planning on writing a sequel?
I did. It's finished.
Oh, it's done? Okay. First of all, where can we get this one?
Amazon, the usual suspects, Barnes and Noble, Maximilian, some indie sites. The second, I don't want to call it a sequel because I think it can stand on its own. So, weave the story of the first book into the second book. So I'm going to submit that over the summer and see what happens.
So it's Vatican's Daughter, guys. Go out and support this author because she has done a really great job at creating a story that's based off of some reality, some facts, and created this powerful and intriguing story and weaved in all of the beautiful backdrop of Italy. So you're getting the scenery, you're getting the ambiance. You may miss the food, but you'll feel like you are there. So you can get it. It's available on all platforms, and you can get it on your website also, Joni?
Yes.
Yes. So
There's
what
a,
is your website?
it's my name, Joni Marie Iraci, IRACI.com.
All right. Thank you guys. And so this is, if you want to be an author, one of the best things you can do for yourself is read.
That's
And
right.
don't just read about the genre that you're writing, but read other genres too. So I'm imploring you to read this book, Vatican Daughter. Now, there are three questions that I love to ask my guests,
So,
and I hope you're prepared. So, what's one bold promise that you can share with
well,
the audience?
there's another book coming, and also possibly a third I've started.
Promise you that.
Okay.
Okay. And then, second, what's a bold statement that you can share with the audience that will cause or may cause a paradigm shift?
Well, it's kind of what you touched on before. Don't believe, don't believe the powers that be, what they said.
Mhm.
They're not always, they're human after all.
Yes.
Be wary, beware.
Yes. The lesson, don't put anyone on a pedestal because we're all human. All right. Third question.
Oh,
What's a bold move that you'd like to make in the future?
oh, honey, my bold move. I went
Mhm.
back to school in my old age. I was light years older than everybody. I discovered that if you laugh at yourself first, it's disarming. So nobody ever
Mhm.
laughed at me. But I don't know. You never know. I've done quite a few bold things. I contacted a best-selling thriller author in my genre and asked him to write an endorsement, and he said yes. I just sent a book to Dan Brown's house. So, I still keep at it, but I don't know. I'm kind of,
And you're still making bold moves.
yes, I think this is a bold
Mhm.
move, right?
That's
Writing
really
this book
bold.
is a bold move. But yeah, the next one is even more I don't know. Some radio host called it irreverent, but that's okay.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
I
We'll
know.
read it and make our own decision. How about that?
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
I've learned so much today, and my takeaway is this, and I want the audience to think about what you can take away. What's one thing that you can take away from this conversation? I've learned not to crown mortals with halos
Absolutely.
because even the brightest stars cast shadows.
Exactly.
And we can take that and do what you may with it. But I know that's what I'm taking away with it because we tend to look up to people that are doing well or have reached and aspired to places that we can only dream of. But it doesn't mean that they're any better than you are. Whatever is possible for them may be possible for you, depending on your circumstances and the places that you wish to go. So if you see someone in a place that you're admiring and wondering, oh my God, how can I get there? First of all, look at your circumstances, look at the life that you have, and really look to see if you're willing to sacrifice what you have for that thing. Because everything that we want in life, everything that we're going to achieve comes with sacrifice. Joni said that she had to sacrifice 8 hours of every day to get this beautiful, intriguing novel out. So it's here, but she had to pay a price. What price are you willing to pay? Think about that. And thank you guys for listening. And thank you so much for tuning in and purchasing. Yes, you're going to purchase Vatican's Daughter. It's available everywhere. Joni, what do you want to tell the audience before they go?
Well, thank you for reading the book and reading any book. It's helpful, but always leave a review because even if you don't
Good
like it,
one.
please leave a review because it helps. It helps the author. And thank
Yes.
you so much. Thanks for the support. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And if there's anyone, say that
me.
again.
Contact me on my website. I'd be delighted to hear. My email address is on there, so I'm happy to hear from readers.
If you guys have any questions after you've read this intriguing book, just send her an email. Send her an email and tell her what you got out of it. Okay? Joni Marie Iraci, thank you so much for coming and sharing about the Vatican Daughter and telling your truth and telling what you've learned. And even though it's embellished, telling us anyway so that we can start to look deeper, because it's important to always do our own research, because the powers that be will tell us what they want us to believe. They want to create the narrative. They want to tell us about our history. But no, do your own research. This is a call to do your own research. So as we reflect on courage, corruption, and the cost of silence, may we also remember even the brightest stars cast shadow. If you're interested in writing your book and you don't know where to start, or maybe you've started and you're stuck on chapter 3, you're stuck on a title, I have a free community. If you're interested, send me an email at authordnicholson@gmail.com. So it's a writing community and it's absolutely free, and you can join where you can get tips and tools to help you get unstuck and get that book out of your head and onto paper. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.